Hi, welcome to Resilient Waters, a healing in the 10,000 lakes. I'm Amy. Let's get connected. Today, I have the privilege and the honor of having Dr. Natalie Marr join me today, and I'm super pumped for this episode, you guys. So, Dr. Natalie Marr has been offering therapy, clinical supervision, and consultation over the past 2 decades, and more recently has added personal development coaching, online course creation, training, and speaking events to her repertoire. Dr. Natalie owns her own private practice in Minnesota. Her clinical expertise is in developmental interpersonal traumas, helping clients trace their present-day difficulties back to their traumatic experiences in childhood, adolescence, or early adulthood. Dr. Natalie guides her clients to reverse how early life experiences negatively impact their present-day relationships, create a poor sense of self-worth, and result in diagnoses such as depression, anxiety, trauma disorders, and personality disorders. Her vast experience in a variety of evidence-based approaches is eclipsed only by her intuitive ability to cultivate one's own curiosity, growth, and wisdom. Dr. Natalie provides significant insights that foster an understanding of oneself. When we understand ourselves and what brought us here, it leads to more kindness, more peace, and more compassion for our own and other stories. And as I was saying before, Natalie, I just resonate so much with that intro and bio for you. It's just so beautiful, and it really encompasses the kind of work that we do. So I'm just so happy to have you on here. I can't wait for this discussion.
Thank you, Amy. I am so excited to be here. When you told me this little child thought in your head, you were just brewing about it, I was like, do it. I was so excited because I think that it's such a beautiful way for people to get to know who therapists really are and what to expect. The idea of therapy is pretty daunting, and people aren't usually looking for it until they're in a lot of trouble. And that's not when our mind is working the best. And so to have just a way to kind of see somebody's personality, and I think a podcast is a beautiful way to do that so that you know them. I just think this is such a wonderful idea. So people kind of know what therapy is about, and then, you know, what therapists are about, because it's both at the same time. And I appreciate your compliment. I was saying to Amy before she started the podcast today that some of the language in that actually came from former clients and their experiences of what they did on their journey with me. And so I like to include information like that because it's straight from the lion's mouth, or the, you know, the source, essentially. Like, then you really know what therapy can do, especially around things like trauma.
Oh, absolutely. I love that truth that, you know, a lot of therapists will tell you too. We learn so much from our clients, and they don't even realize it. But they're experts, right? Like, and that's part of our training, right? Through Air Network, that competency-based language and training is just, our clients are just as much experts that they think maybe we are, which, you know.
Yeah.
We have things to offer.
No, it's a
meeting.
It's a meeting of the minds in a lot of ways. It's two experts, one in content around mental health and how to best help you and yourself, coming together to create something that's much bigger, much greater, and is going to help you on your healing journey for sure.
Yeah. And I'm just so excited to let people know about the different things you offer, because as much as, you know, the journey for mental health is often, you know, trying to find a therapist, which is really hard nowadays with all the wait lists and the lack of services that are out there. But you have these amazing tools for people who may be on a waiting list, or who aren't quite ready for the level of therapy or time that therapy may need at this point in their lives. And so I just love that you have so much more to offer clients, that I want to highlight that for this episode for people. So let's get into it. So tell us a little bit about, like, how you got here and how you're, you know, who you work with.
Yeah. How did I get here? It's been so long. Like, it's a 2-decade story. So I'll try to make it short and sweet. But it's funny because I think when I went to college, I thought I was going to go into the medical field. I knew I wanted to get a doctorate, was kind of what was on my agenda. But I swiftly found that physics, chemistry, and math are not my favorite subject matters.
I resonate with that. It's not my thing.
I was like, I like the science though. I even liked plant biology for all weirdness.
Yeah.
So, I just kept going into more, sociology, psychology classes. And then I realized, let me just shift this over a little bit. Happy accident, right? Like the universe knew what it was doing because I am eternally inquisitive. I'm just a curious person by nature and curious in a non-judgmental way. So I am suited well for this industry because I am on your side. I know there is no way that the way that you tick doesn't make sense on some plane. It has to. Yes. It has to make sense somewhere, even if you're doing things that are self-destructive or, self-defeating, or you feel like you're self-sabotaging your own success. There's a reason for that. And I am eternally inquisitive and curious about, what is that? So that's really what has led me along my journey. And the work that was always the most meaningful for me was grief and trauma, because it really taxes a person. It just does. Like they're at the end of where their resources internally are, and they're looking for resources outside them to augment them, to kind of cross the bridge into a healing journey. And that for me is just like, it's a bottomless pit of opportunity. I know that doesn't sound like it goes together, but it's like, oh my gosh, there's the black hole of like, you could just keep going and going and going here. And so that really resonates for me as to what I want to do. I just, new things, it keeps me excited. It keeps me into it. And so I kept expanding my repertoire toolbox with trauma-based therapies. And my original medical school version of me who liked science really fell into the neurobiology of trauma.
Right.
And understanding that really changed the game for me entirely. And so you've already referenced, one of the therapies that you and I both use and how we met is, I always say it wrong, but adaptive internal relational network therapy, AIR network therapy. Is that right? Yep. I don't know why I always start the A with awareness or something. I don't know
what. It's a beautiful name, but yes, there's so many acronyms in our field. Yep.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. But that one in particular has a very neurobiological base, and that shifted how I do my work and how I use the tools. So now instead of getting frustrated because a tool like EMDR isn't working for somebody, I again go back to that inquisitiveness of, well, but that has to make sense here. So what's this person's neurobiology that explains that to me? And what are the other tools that I have in my toolkit here to really help them?
Yeah.
I don't know. That. I don't even know if I've answered your question at this point. I started rambling. It happens.
It's perfect. It's exactly what this podcast is for, is really getting to know what you do and what your thought process for therapy is, so that when people listen, they really can go, okay, she's got the tools that I'm looking for, and that makes me feel good and safe to be able to reach out. And so, this is perfect. And you know me, this is my soapbox too. So I just, you're just going to see my head bob up and down all the time, because this is my thing. We met in AIR Network for a reason, and all these tools are lovely and beautiful, and evidence-based research for EMDR is phenomenal. It's got a lot of history behind it, and AIR Network is just so rooted in factual-based research that it's beautiful stuff. So tell us a little bit about the different things that you do offer. I know you have a clinical practice. Maybe talk a little bit about that. And
sure. So services that I provide, one that I would really like to highlight, I have started in the last year a group and individual therapy combo, and it's on the list of things that I offer the most fiscally responsible. I also am a private practice and don't take insurance, and so I'm always looking for creative ways to let people have access to the services that I offer, but do it in a way that works within their finances. You can sometimes get out of network benefit reimbursement, but it's a consideration because you're out of pocket on the front end any way that you slice it. And so I started to do my psychoeducation pieces of the therapy that I offer, because I do a lot of educating. I want you to understand your own brain, your own nervous system, why what's happening is happening, and how you can harness that knowledge to your benefit. I started to take most of that and put it into the group format. So it's twice a month. I do a psychoeducation 1 hour kind of, listen to Dr. Natalie spew all the material out. And then I give you an online course and an online workbook to do the work throughout the month. And we meet one other time to talk and hash out, like, how's it going? What are you noticing? What are you still feeling stuck with or not? And you're doing that in a group setting. So you also have the benefit of kind of hearing it through the lens of other people's stories, which can be very useful. Sometimes when I talk about this stuff, it's really heady. So it's not until we start to put it into the actionable, like, this is what happens when you're having your fight with your husband. And this is what happens when you're feeling really needy over on this side of your life. And then it all of a sudden makes sense. So hearing it through other people's lenses really helps. So we do that. And then you have a session with me individually in there too, so that we can unpack your own stuff, but in a way that feels confidential and right. And if you're doing EMDR, we might do more than one individual session so that we can also do some of that EMDR around that. So that's kind of that's ideal. And the people that I see the most success with the most quickly are using that model in my services. Right. But I do individual therapy as well, just individual therapy. I have EMDR that I offer. And so I'm in office and out of office, but I prefer to see my EMDR clients in office because then we can use the full extent of the equipment that you have with EMDR. And I also am doing coaching and have a podcast and am doing some other stuff that's not really related to my private practice, but kind of an adjunct to. Yeah. And because I'm a licensed psychologist, I just, here's my disclaimer. If you need therapy, I'll recommend therapy, and you have to do therapy. If you can do coaching, I can certainly slot you in over on that side of my business, and we can do it that way. And if you're seeing another therapist and still want to get the coaching with me, that's another additional way that you can do things. And my coaching is individual, and I do groups with my coaching, but I don't have one currently running, but you should always follow me wherever you can find me, which I'm sure all the links will be in your notes. So you can follow me wherever you find me, and then you'll know when I'm doing one of those.
I love this. And yes, all of the information I will list in the description of this podcast and on my website so that people can find you pretty easily, and all the different Instagram I know and LinkedIn and all those places. Yeah. But then I just want to say too that it's kind of rare to be able to find someone who's offering different levels of care within their practice, because what we find is, you see a therapist and they do therapy and that's all they have. And to find a workbook that you can be doing on your own with coaching or all of those different options, or being able to just access you and listen to you to get to know you better, or get some little nuggets, just because life gets hard and sometimes it's not the right time for therapy for clients, and that's just a reality. And so I love this option for people. So please, if you're listening and you're not sure if therapy is quite where you want to be, check out Natalie. She's got a lot of other things offered that might resonate with you for right now. So it's just really cool.
I actually think it marries real well with the work that you and I do, trauma-based work. Because people's resiliency levels for doing the intense part of trauma therapy is almost never there when they first are ready to start therapy. And so most of what we do as therapists is kind of get them ready. And there's some frustration there when you're paying out of pocket for an hour of my time. And so I like to be able to give people a variety of ways of accessing building that resiliency and building that capacity, so they have tolerance for the more in-depth work when they are in a place and ready to do that. And you're right. Sometimes that's about just individual, like they don't have the tools in the toolbox yet. And sometimes it's just life circumstances, like it's just not a good time for me to be unpacking my stuff when I've got all this family drama that's happening right now that I'm a part of, or I'm shifting things in my occupation right now, or I'm moving or something of that nature. Like there are just life's like real life things that get in the way of being in a space where you're ready and centered enough to do this kind of work.
Absolutely. It's so normal. And I want to normalize this. It's normal for people to maybe start therapy or do some therapy right now and then take a break and do some later. Or, I think a lot of people think I'm going to go in and I'm going to just straight line this and make all the progress and do all that. And it can be a lot for our system. Like neurologically, when you're looking at that, that's a lot of growth all at once. It takes a lot of energy.
That's a ton of growth. Yeah.
Right.
And the thing about trauma and grief, that what they have in common is they create kind of a crater in the center of our life. And the crater doesn't really fill in. What therapy does is it grows you around that crater. So then there's more of your life and you're bumping into the side of that much less and less. And so if you come in thinking that what the work is to just get that crater out of your life, I mean, there's where we begin in the education of helping you understand, I wish it was like that. And it would seem simple, right? That isn't actually how human biology works, though. We're going to have to build new neural networks around what feels like this big crater in the center of your universe. But then it won't feel like a big crater. It'll feel like a little divot over time because you've built so much around it.
Yeah, it's that people coming in, maybe looking for EMDR. I hear this a lot. Like, I just don't want that thing to be there anymore.
Yeah.
Or maybe even worried that that's going to go away with EMDR. And we don't take away neural networks. We don't take away neurology. That's not a thing. It's not even biologically possible.
Nope.
Not with this. So
not with the tools that we have in our toolbox. Maybe a lobotomy, but I highly,
we don't do that. We don't recommend.
I highly warn against the idea that if I just cut it out, then I wouldn't have to worry about this because just the way our biology works is things just bump into other things. And so, something about this life experience that's really causing you a lot of despair also is internalized wisdom that you're going to want to use in other parts of your life. And so our journey is really to help you not have the trauma responses to it, but to have a more adaptive response to it. And that's really the journey in trauma therapy.
The word resiliency, as you know, means a lot to me. And that is the epitome of this work, right? And so I love it. Okay, so let's talk about some nuts and bolts. We already know where to find you. We talked a little bit about insurance. You do out-of-network possibilities for some people, but it's private pay. Are there any other considerations for getting in contact with you that people need to know, referrals, things like that, or...
No, I actually try to make it as easy as possible. I also have openings. So my private practice website is nataliemarrcounseling.com. And it has a little pop-up that lets you sign up for a 15-minute consultation free with me. Awesome. It's a Zoom-based. It's actually Google Meet because that's my HIPAA-compliant web surface that you can sign up for. And you and I can sit down face-to-face for 15 minutes, and you can get a feel for, would this work for me? And you can ask me all the questions you want to ask me about, could you really help me with something like this? Or what would that even look like? And what are your recommendations? And I'll walk you through, here are my services and here's what I think could work the best, given the context of what you're telling me. And then we'll talk about getting that set up for you. So I try to make it as easy as absolutely possible. And on my coaching website, which there will also be a link, I just have a plethora of blogs, videos, and podcasts that you can tap into if any of that subject matter is something that you're interested in, and that's all free to you. And so those resources will be there as well, because I do want to make this as accessible as possible. I'm hoping my private practice website is also going to bolster that way. But if I do a second podcast, Amy, I'm going to need a person. I'm gonna need an editor. I'm gonna need something. Something's gonna have to shift. Because this single mom who's an entrepreneur does not have those many hours in the day to do too.
I hear you. I
cannot figure that out.
It is always finding the balance for ourselves so that we can actually offer what we need to offer for our clients. So
that's right.
Everybody just know that Natalie is quite the professional who's been doing this for a while. She knows all the things here. It's been just an amazing time getting to know you over the last few years, and she's an amazing. Amazing
Aw,
therapist.
you're so sweet, Amy. I need
check
a
her
little bit
out.
of you in my day every day. I might just have to replay that part just over and over. I was telling her
I'll
we're
send you a
recording on
snippet.
a rainy day, and I'm like, it's kind of funky out. I don't know. I feel pretty good, but I was hoping for sun today. I'll just turn a little Amy on, and then I'll feel better.
I'm glad I can do that for you. Honestly, I'll send you the snippet. I promise.
Thank you.
So anyway, okay. Well, there is a really fun question that. So at the end of all my podcasts, I ask everybody who I'm speaking with if they'd pick a question, and I'm really excited for your question today, Natalie. So if there was a fictional character that you could pick to provide your therapy services or coaching services to, who would you pick and why?
So I have this, like, someday I'll do a full recording of myself with this, because there's
Oh,
so
I
many
love it.
ways this could go. But I have this love-hate relationship with the princesses of Disney.
Yes.
So
I'm loving where this is going,
I know.
Natalie.
So the princesses of Disney, really, I could use them in my. I also am a graduate school professor. I could really use them to teach psychopathology, which is an unfortunate truth.
Right.
So today I'm going to pick a little bit on Cinderella. She's kind of quintessential, she's the one that you think of when you think Disney princesses.
Yeah.
One of the things that is so strong in the Cinderella storyline, which makes sense, is the programming and conditioning of what would
Yes.
make a good life and what wouldn't make a good life. And so I definitely think if Cinderella was sitting across from me, and here's how I imagine this happening. We're talking a year after this wedding, right? Like they
Okay.
went off happily ever after, only it's not really happily
Right.
ever after, because there's nothing to substantiate that happening in her life. That was supposed to fix all the problems, and you and I both know marriage does not fix problems.
No.
It may create many more, and it may also create many more resources and resiliency factors, but it just creates things. It doesn't fix things. That's not what it's meant to
Right.
do.
Right. That is not its purpose.
That's not its purpose. So I think she'd be sitting across the couch from me about a year later saying, what's the deal? Like, why? I did all the right things. I ticked all the boxes. I listened to my fairy godmother, and I still feel kind of like, meh. Like, what is it, a baby?
What's
Would
my
a baby
purpose?
fix all of this?
What? Yeah. Oh.
Oh, yes. Yes. So
I see
I
it.
think that how I would go after this is really to help her to see the programming and conditioning that doesn't serve her. That was why she followed through. It was the programming and conditioning fairy godmother gave her. But it was even before that, when she was singing to the, birds and the mice and saying, like, if the man came, someday my prince will come, then it's going to get all fixed. And
Right.
it's really that premise that undermines her and takes away her power. And I'd want her
Right.
to shift into her power, which is much more my coaching business side of things, is women's empowerment.
Yeah.
I really want people to see where you have choice and you have agency in your life. Doesn't mean that those choices are easy to make, but if she could make her life with her two step sisters and stepmom a wonderful life, she's the one in power. She's making choices to choose a life that she loves in the life that she's in,
Yes.
and not trying to fix it with some external person or thing, because
Right.
I see this in people's chase and occupations, in dreams, things of that nature. Like, if you're always attaching to the outcome being what causes the shift to make you feel better, it also will cause you distress because you don't control those external factors, but you do control internal ones. So I think that's
Right.
where I would go with fictional character Cinderella. But we've got girls with daddy issues. We got girls with mommy issues. We have girls, chasing dreams that were set for them by, culture and family and all sorts of things. There's all sorts of ways to go with
I want to
the
see
princesses.
EMDR with the princesses and all their traumas.
Oh my
I think
gosh.
that would be a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. Maybe we need to set that up. This might be
Maybe.
another podcast to do.
Maybe that would. We could just do the princess. I'm telling you, I've had
beautiful.
I have random thoughts about it every time I watch something with my daughter, and I'm like, can we just have okay, time out. Mommy just needs to do a little teachable moment here, because that is some bull crap. Like, I can't. I just can't.
I always say too, I'm so sorry you have a mommy therapist, and that's going to come with some consequences. I love you. I'm doing the best,
love you.
but I'm sure someday that'll come back. You know, when they're in that developmental stage of adolescence and they get to criticize the parenting stuff, I'm sure I'm going to hear about the therapy.
I'm positive.
Piece, which
I'm positive.
I'm open for. I love it. This question just makes me so happy.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
So good. I liked it too. That's why when you were like, which one of these would you like to pick? I'm like, oh, that one. Because I think about that one all the time.
That's phenomenal. Oh, thank you so much for bringing that.
You are so welcome.
Oh, thank you, everybody, for listening. Please know, again, I will list all the things we talked about and links to resources in the description today. I have a feeling people are going to be asking for us to do another one of these down the future. So if Natalie is bringing another podcast or doing another wonderful thing, she can bring it here to us. But always check her website for updates and things like that.
Yes.
But again, she's got openings, and I think that's a great opportunity for a lot of people. So
yes,
thanks again. And
you are so welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been so fun.
Oh, it's a blast. I can't wait. All right. Well,
all right.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and I will see you next time. All right, guys, this is the legal stuff, the disclaimer. The podcast is intended for educational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for professional therapeutic advice or counseling. Always consult with a qualified mental health professional for any personal concerns or issues. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and guest and do not represent the views of any affiliated institution or organization. Listener discretion is advised.